Good afternoon. It is indeed my pleasure to welcome you to the Center for Online and Continuing Education professional development session for today. Our topic today is utilizing Google Workspaces for the online classroom. Not so much the, somehow, but more importantly, the why, what it brings, how it's going to help your students succeed. And it is also a pleasure to introduce you to Jess Weiss. Jess is a friend, a colleague, and has been one of my teachers. So we also have several members of our team who are serving as panelists for today's session. So we are looking forward to a lively discussion and to you jumping in and sharing your thoughts, your ideas, I wonder if I could do that type of question. So with that, I will turn it over to Jess. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Judy. So yes, as Dr. Judy said, my name is Jess Weiss. I am a learning strategist with the Center for Online and Continuing Education. I've been with the center for about almost 3 years, actually just a little bit over 3 years, and it's been quite the adventure. So I really appreciate you guys joining us today to kind of talk about the applications that the Google Workspaces, formerly known as G Suite, how we can implement those in the online classroom, and kind of a little bit about the pedagogical perspective of why use these tools in our online classroom. If you've been to any of our professional development sessions in the past, you may know that we're not so much the technical piece as much as this is a conversation about why use the tools we use. So we're very much, we're not using technology for the sake of using something flashy. It's more so about how can we leverage technology to create meaningful experiences for our students. Okay, so this is just a very brief outline of what we'll be discussing today. First, I'd like to kind of scaffold this by showing you first some of the tools that you may already be using that you may not have realized are very similar to some of the Google applications. So I'd like to kind of go over those first, then kind of share with you an overview of what the Google Workspaces apps are. There's actually a ton, and I'm just going to kind of highlight a handful of them, ones that I find to be the most useful in an online classroom. And then most importantly, we'll discuss the why. So the pedagogical perspectives behind why use these tools in an online classroom. And then lastly, and I hope that I'll have your participation in this, I'd love to go through some examples and applications of how we use these tools. Maybe you've seen them used before, maybe you've used them yourself. I'm very fortunate that I have some of my colleagues who have worked in the capacity of instructional designers that will be able to share perhaps some of their experiences working with faculty members or subject matter experts to utilize these tools. And of course, just to reiterate, if you want to jump in at any point, please do. Okay, moving right along. Okay, so tools you may know, and you likely do. So Microsoft has several applications that are part of the Microsoft Office suite. So applications such as Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, and Microsoft Excel. Those are the three I'm going to talk about today. Those three tools are extremely powerful, but when you are able to add the fact that you can have real-time collaboration capabilities using those tools, that's what Google Workspace apps are. So there's kind of like equivalence. So for example, Microsoft has Word, Google Apps has Docs. So there's kind of like a one-to-one there in terms of like if you want to use Word, but you would like to use it, synchronously as a web-based service and collaboratively, you can find the equivalent of that as a Google Workspace app. So again, a lot of the features are going to be very, very similar. So if you're comfortable using Word, if you're comfortable using PowerPoint or Excel, you're kind of gonna be in a pretty good place when it comes to using these applications as they are in the Google Workspace. So just to kind of give you a quick overview, so Google Workspace is formerly G Suite. So you may have heard of G Suite before. And again, they have a bunch of apps, but I kind of want to focus on a couple of these just to kind of introduce you to a few of them. So the most common two I would say are probably Gmail and Google Drive. So I'm just going to open up really quickly and show you all of our students. They have a Gmail account. I think on the other end, on the faculty and we have Outlook, but our students will have access to Gmail. And with their Gmail accounts, their whole Google account, they have access to all of these apps here. So there's a whole bunch, as I mentioned, but we're going to go over a couple of them. So this is Gmail. Again, just an email, a web-based email application. You can access your Gmail account from anywhere. You can send files. It has all of the same functions as Outlook, for example. Google Drive. Google Drive is like a file sharing kind of a system. So basically you can upload things from your computer and be able to access them anywhere, as well as share them with anyone that has a Google Drive account as well. So I can upload, this is my Google Drive here for work. So my presentation lives in Google Drive, and then my colleagues are able to open it up because it is hosted on the cloud. So anyone can access it as long as I've given permission for other folks to access it. So anything that's hosted on Google Drive can be shared and is accessible from any computer anywhere. So Google Docs would be most like Microsoft Word. So as you see here, much of this is going to look similar to a Microsoft Word document. And this is actually a real document that we use internally here at COSI so that we can all collaborate and brainstorm and take notes together. So really quick, just you can see here that, this is just a regular old document, and there are multiple people on this document. So multiple people have taken notes on here. We can all do that synchronously. So if I'm in a meeting and folks are able to edit the document, I can see their changes happening on the screen as well. So that's really useful. Google Sheets is much like the Excel Microsoft product. So again, it's the same concept. This mirrors basically an Excel sheet, except it's collaborative and it's cloud-based. So multiple students could work on one sheet at the same time, can have multiple of these tabs here at the bottom. So you can have students working on their own tab or on the same tab. But again, it's synchronous and it's like real time. So if someone else was on here, I could see the changes being made if it was shared with them and with me as well. And lastly, Google Slides, which is where we are now. So really quick, I'd love to show you this. If I go to the version history of this, this is a Google slide, so it's basically PowerPoint. It looks very similar, same functionality. Sometimes it's even improved functionality in my opinion. But one of the great things is that I can see all of the edits to this document. I can see what the edits were, when they were, and who made them. So for example, this is the document in which I used to create our presentation today, and I'm able to see that some of my colleagues made edits to this as well. And it's really useful. So I can see on November 9th, these are the folks that made these changes, and I can also see past versions. So this is really useful when you're assigning like group work to students, and perhaps you have 5 students in a group and you want to make sure that they all equally contributed and it just wasn't one student doing all of the work. You can actually see all of the different edits, who made them, when they made them, and so on. So that's a really great way to kind of gauge the student participation when you have group work assignments. I'd like to just pause here for a quick second and just to ask if anyone has any questions regarding what we've looked at so far. And I see one of my colleagues here put something in the chat for us regarding how to access this. So thank you very much, Nicole. That's very much appreciated.
I have a question, Jess.
Sure.
So I know you were saying that, for example, the Google Slides has some capabilities that are similar to PowerPoint. Do you have the same options in terms of creating your background, using layouts, and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mary.
Mhm.
So absolutely, the same functionality that you'd have in PowerPoint is available. I will say, just anecdotally, I have experienced like slight differences. So, for example, if I'm using the Excel, the Google Sheets version, sometimes I'll notice like, oh, okay, in Excel that option's over here, but I had to find it in a different spot. But it's not terribly different. And honestly, if you have a background using the Microsoft products, you're going to be pretty well off exploring the Google applications. So yeah, Mary, absolutely. So there's that same functionality in terms of formatting. Backgrounds, as you can see, I was able to customize this presentation. All of those same functionalities are available in the Google version, but with additional bonus bonus things that it's cloud based, so that when you work on a PowerPoint and you save it locally to your computer,
Mhm.
I can't go next door and open it on my neighbor's computer. But with Google, because it's cloud based, I can access this anywhere in the world as long as I have an internet connection and I log into my own account. And it's as I mentioned earlier, it's completely like synchronous. So Mary, if you wanted to jump into this presentation and change something, you'd easily be able to do so, and you and I can see each other's changes, as opposed to perhaps you and I are working on a PowerPoint, Mary. I'd have to make changes, save it, email it to you. You'd have to make your changes, save it, email it back to me. So this
Yeah.
can be done totally synchronously.
Yeah. And I can see from this view where you have the format options, where you can
Yes.
choose your layout, your theme. So
Hmm.
in that sense, you have all of those options as you would in PowerPoint.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mary. Absolutely. It is quite a powerful, just as PowerPoint is a powerful tool, this is as equally as powerful. I don't know that there's really any in my experience, any drawbacks. I will say, to be honest with you, I have talked to folks that rely on Excel, like the really advanced stuff. They tend to prefer Excel over for like really advanced stuff, but for the purpose of having collaborative assignments for your students, I think the Google Workspace apps are phenomenal. So this is really the crux of the presentation, and I hope where we can kind of have a conversation. So the focus of everything that we do here is why use these tools? What's the purpose of using collaborative tools in an online classroom? It's really not about just using it for the sake of it being trendy or cool. It's there. This needs to add something meaningful to our instruction. So what is it? And from my perspective, adding the capability for collaboration, it really increases the opportunity for peer-to-peer learning. So there are several learning theories that kind of support this idea of social learning. I'd actually like to invite Dr. Judy, if you're willing to kind of talk a little bit more about the learning theories that support collaboration and peer-to-peer learning, if you're comfortable with.
Well, unaccustomed as I am to public speaking, sure, I'll be answered. Yeah, these tools definitely support a constructivist perspective in our classrooms and for our students' success, because as they can work through and interact with each other, they will be better able to start to develop their own theories, construct their own meanings for things. And uh, actually another little book that I was sharing from that talks about some of this as well. Um, in a connected classroom, um, you're using the tools to build the community, and that community is an important part an important part of where we need to go and how we need to move forward with it. The the whole idea of thinking about what we've done and interacting with each other and sharing thoughts and ideas is what makes this such a valuable learning experience.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Dr. Judy. And this is not, you know, a new concept by any means in terms of the pedagogy. However, I think that, you know, some folks that haven't taught online, or perhaps they have, but they haven't really explored some of the tools that are out there, they have this misconception that you lose this element of interaction and engagement and collaboration in an online environment, and especially in an asynchronous online environment. But I don't think that that's necessarily true. And so what this is really about is how can we leverage technology to not just lose any face-to-face opportunities for face-to-face interaction, but to be able to pull that into an online environment. And honestly, there's a little bit more accessibility as well. You know, you may have students that are working during the day and they're able to collaborate asynchronously. My master's degree was completely online, and I was working throughout my master's degree, and I had, you know, uh, all the opportunities that my peers had to collaborate, even on a totally different schedule. So that really worked for me. So yeah, there's a bunch of reasons why this makes sense, and there's no reason why we need to lose opportunities for collaboration, interaction, and engagement and social learning in an online environment. There's some other really strong arguments for why to leverage these tools. Any opportunities that we can give students to be able to show their learning, show their understanding, their processes. Um, these tools are awesome for that, especially given that you can see like histories, and you can kind of watch a document grow. Also, another really valuable thing is that you're giving students a voice. So many of us know that when we're teaching face to face, we may have the participation and engagement and interactions of like only the, you know, 10 students in the front that are raising their hand. But when you open this up for collaborative interaction, you can really hear from everyone, not just those couple loud voices in the front. And also, you're giving students the opportunity to learn from each other. You know, many of us, personally, I learn best that way, from talking things out and from learning from my peers and asking questions and having that back and forth. And I really find that these collaborative tools really support me in being able to share my learning experiences. I also have a list of some other great benefits. One of them being that you're really mitigating a lot of the technical issues that you'd encounter otherwise. There's nothing to download. These are completely web-based applications. So you don't have to download anything. There's no like problems with any programs. You can access it from anywhere. If your computer explodes, you can go to the library and access it. So we're really, you know, mitigating a lot of those technical issues. Additionally, there's chat features so that students can kind of interact with each other as they're building a document together. As I showed you before, you're able to track who has done what to kind of gauge participation in groups. Another great feature is that you can add comments. So instructors can add feedback to their students' work, or students can add feedback to each other. So the comments feature is really valuable. And lastly, you can kind of you can track some of the other issues, like when documents were created, who edited them, how they were edited, and you can see those different history versions as well. So you get a lot of like metadata, so to speak, on a document outside of just what's presented to you that you may not get from just a Word document.
Hi, it's me again, Mary. Yeah, so our students use their phones a lot, right? So with these tools, I guess they can submit an assignment from anywhere. They can see what other people are doing from their phones, and it's doesn't get any more convenient than that, right?
Absolutely. And Mary, that's a great point. I mean, we've all experienced technical issues, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that, being able to, different platforms, different modalities, different computers, different locations, all of that stuff, the access is really opened. So that's another benefit. Thank you, Mary, for highlighting that for us. Absolutely. Okay, if we're good to move on, I'm actually quite interested to hear from my colleagues, our participants here, and our attendees for perhaps some examples and applications. Um, I'd also really love to hear from you about things that you use either in your face-to-face classroom or in your online environment where you're using perhaps maybe those Microsoft products, but you see like, oh, if I just converted this to a Google Doc assignment, this really opens up A, B, C, and D. So I jotted down a couple of examples that were kind of like top of mind for me, but I'd really love to hear from everyone else. So, using Google Slides, you can have students collaborate on group presentations. I wrote Jigsaw or collaborative jigsaw, meaning that, each student has their own piece of the presentation they do. So, student A is responsible for slides 1 and 2, student 2 is or B is responsible for 3 and 4, and so on. Or they can all kind of collaborate, and you can still see, um, you know, who worked on what. Obviously, using Google Docs, anything you can use, anything that would have been done in Word can be used with Google Docs, but now more collaboratively, such as, peer reviewing essays, class brainstorming documents, even debates are something that you'd be able to use using Google Docs.
And I'm going to jump in on that one because that comment came up earlier today. And out of curiosity, I thought I would look it up, and I will share the resource that I found. And it does not it references online debates. It does not necessarily say you can use a Google Doc for it, but the way they explained the process for doing a debate in an asynchronous online class was using their recommendation was using a discussion prompt, and in my mind it probably would go even smoother to use a Google Docs, because then each one can make their points back and forth and see what the others have said, and see how to bring their rebuttal back in, and following the classic rules of debate.
And while you guys are hopefully participating in this, I'd like to kind of open the floor for any of my colleagues that perhaps have seen any implementations of these Google applications in their online classroom.
Hey, Jess. Can you
Hi.
hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So I was gonna put this in the Slido, but the way that I've seen it used is really cool. We actually did it in science labs. So students would perform an at-home experiment and they would add their results to a Google Sheet. And at the end of the week, each lab group would analyze their results collectively through a Google Sheet, create a graph using the Google Sheet, and really do their lab report asynchronously, collaboratively, which was a great experience for the students, as if you were to work on a lab, in a professional setting, in a lab, and being able to access those data points and do your analyses and research from wherever you are.
That's phenomenal. Thank you, Nicole, for sharing that. Yeah, there is really a lot that can be done using these apps, and as you said, both, you're no longer place bound or time bound, so the access is really opened up for students from, anywhere at any time. So that's an awesome application. We are getting some responses from our Slido poll. It sounds like there's already some great some thoughts being generated. So yeah, I love the idea of a reflection journal. to be honest with you, we actually use them here at COSI in a professional capacity to kind of, jot down some of our accomplishments, some of our, experiences, the ways we've grown, and we're able to share that with our supervisors, so they can kind of make notes, they can see the edits and so on. So it's actually a very valuable tool that we use here at COSI. Obviously, we have a really collaborative group of folks here, so almost all of our meetings have an accompanying Google Doc that we edit together. So yeah, these look great. Definitely sign-in sheets, absolutely. So if you list a topic or a list of topics rather, and you have students sign up, then yeah, absolutely, students aren't double booking themselves. That's fabulous.
I have one more that has been used using Google Slides, where students, kind of what you had in your PowerPoint slide, where a student did a presentation, and so they kind of broke it up into the slides, like you had, like, okay, the first we're going to talk about this, then we're going to, talk about what we learned, where we got the information, the citations, and kind of split it up so there was a collaborative presentation that the students could give. We also had some of them record it and have a video recording of their presentation, which was also great. They got to add kind of voice comments and things.
I was just wondering if Abby wanted to elaborate a little bit on the open educational resource comment.
I would love to. An example of a reusable assessment or assignment as an open educational resource is, for example, an essay or a small chapter, mini chapter of a topic that students collaboratively work on in small groups, and each semester that chapter or that mini article is updated with new discoveries. For example, in a green technology course and a nanotechnology course, those technologies are rapidly evolving, and each semester there's more data and new information, and OERs are fantastic ways for students to build upon knowledge and take ownership of that knowledge building process. And it's easier grading on the instructor's part.
What a great idea. I love that approach to it. We're all it's a group think sort of a thing, right?
Groupthink. Yes, indeed. Thank you for asking. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Abby. All right. So if there were any other questions, just general questions, I'd love to kind of go over those with you before we wrap it up here. I know we're kind of last couple minutes here. Yeah, there's really a lot that can be done with these tools. I find them to be extremely powerful and just really add a lot to an online environment. So I hope that you will, play around a little bit and, invite your students to utilize these tools and show their learning and learn from each other. And yeah, there's certainly a bunch of advantages from an instructor perspective as well. So I hope that that you found this presentation to be informative, and it's planted some seeds for some applications in future offerings of your class.
And I will let everyone know that we will be sending you this presentation and a few resources that we have found to share with you on that topic as well.
Wonderful. This last slide here just kind of highlights some of the professional development sessions we have coming up. So November 22nd, we have Sharing Successes professional development session. On the 29th, leveling up with gamification, and on December 6th, a presentation on rubrics. So lots of fun and exciting stuff coming from the Center for Online and Continuing Education. And I hope that you will join us.
And also from all of you. So we look forward to getting your input on these topics. Thank you so much for joining us today.